All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever it is that you're logged in from. You're welcome to today's session by DigiShares. I'll be moderating the sessions today. My name is Buki Ogunshaki, and I'm an attorney based in Lagos, Nigeria. I currently run BBO Solicitors, and we're an emerging technologies firm, primarily specializing in data privacy, cybersecurity, and emerging tech like crypto, blockchain, DLT, NFTs, metaverse, and artificial intelligence, and lots more. It's wonderful to be here today. I'd like to say a very big thank you to the entire DigiShares team for having us here today. We have an awesome lineup for you. I think we're going to be starting off with an update from DigiShares by Klaus Canning. And so I'm just going to hand over to him to take the updates for us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to you, Buki, for taking the facilitation of the meeting today. That means a lot to us. My name is Klaus. I'm the CEO of DigiShares. DigiShares is a company in the tokenization space providing infrastructure and solutions. So we provide a solution that allow you to tokenize your own assets, manage investors, manage tokens, the share cap table, pay out dividends, facilitate trading, and so on. Basically make it quite easy for you to tokenize your own properties, your own assets, and so on in a user-friendly way. We quite often conduct these webinars almost once every month. This month we have 3, so it's a busy month. Yesterday we had one focused on Southeast Asia. Today we focus on Africa. Yeah, next week we are focused on the exchange business. And I think we've done 15 or so far. So the goal of this webinar here is to educate and motivate, spread knowledge about tokenization, and try to make it understandable and easy to get started for anyone interested in the space. We view tokenization as a natural sort of future infrastructure for the financial services space. We are convinced that banks and large financial firms will be using blockchain and tokenization infrastructure in the future. And in fact, that the market will grow extremely much over the next few years, as projected, for instance, by Citibank and the Boston Consulting Group, to maybe around $16 trillion by 2030. So we'll be in for quite a ride. Everyone in the industry should be able to gain and benefit from that, and sort of see a huge innovation and growth in the next few years. So today we are really excited to present a number of high quality speakers from Africa, where tokenization is actually quite well developed, I would say, in many countries, and especially real estate and land and infrastructure applications. We have seen quite a lot. Often the target is to sort of involve the local community and the local sort of retail investors, engage them in the development and support of new properties and types of infrastructure in the region, and sort of use tokenization to democratize and enable people to invest into these exciting projects. And I think that's really the right way to use it. I think the underlying motivation for us, definitely as a company, is to democratize and allow people globally, retail investors globally, to get access to attractive investment opportunities that they did not have access in the past. Even in countries where there's no banking infrastructure, you can now quite easily access crypto and blockchain applications on your mobile device, for instance, and pretty soon also easily invest into real estate properties using crypto on a mobile app globally. So I think that's quite exciting. So thanks to Buki and to the speakers today. I'm looking forward to hearing the presentations. As mentioned, next week we have a webinar focused on real estate.exchange, or REX, the exchange that we are launching pretty soon in the US. So you can sign up for that as well if you're interested in the exchange and liquidity side. On our side, DigiShares is expanding and doing business in more and more countries. So we have clients in 40 countries now. And recently, last week, actually, I was in Korea, where regulators are soon opening up the market to tokenization. And we see actually a massive interest in being sort of among the first to tokenize an asset and sort of get the infrastructure in place. The large financial firms in Korea are all quite interested in doing POCs and looking at the infrastructure options they have available. Next week, I'm in Dubai, which is a slightly more developed market, of course, but still not actually totally open for on the legal side. But also in Dubai and UAE, there's a massive interest for tokenizing assets, and there's a few different ways of actually sort of pushing through the regulatory hurdles in that region. So that's sort of that's my update, and I will pass back the word to Buki, and looking forward to a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Klaus, for that update. And I'm sure we can tell that we have a lot of things to discuss today based on that update. We've talked about, Klaus was able to cover a number of regions within his introductory update to us. So I think we're going to go right to it. Our first speaker for the day is Mark. And Mark Whitman is the CEO of Unum Capital. He's a seasoned professional with a diverse background that seamlessly blends the worlds of finance and business. Mark's journey in the financial industry spans over 2 decades, marked by leadership roles and significant contributions to various organizations. As a founder and CEO of Unum Capital since March 2016, Mark has steered the company to become one of South Africa's favorite financial service providers. Unum is derived from the Latin word meaning one, and it reflects the company's commitment to offering a comprehensive trading and investment destination for organizations and their clients. Mark's leadership philosophy revolves around core values such as fairness, transparency, honesty, objectivity, and accountability. And we can see that those values really resonate, with the tokenization space and general ecosystem. So Mark, I'm going to hand over to you to take it away.
No, thank you, Buki, and I'm quite embarrassed after that introduction. So that was very kind of you. Klaus from DigiShares, thank you very much for the invitation to speak. It's an emerging area, this tokenization and digital assets in South Africa, and I'm sure my colleagues will speak about that as well just now. But late-ish last year, the South African regulator decided to include crypto assets as a financial product under phase. And they gave everyone till the end of this month to apply for a crypto asset service provider licensing, and licensing opened in June of this year, and I think we got our license application in on the 8th. And so this is fairly new. I mean, digital assets have clearly been around a long time in South Africa, and cryptocurrencies being the first, but it's only recent that we've seen it come under the regulatory umbrella, and it, as I say, it's very formative, and we're engaging with the regulators, I wouldn't say on a weekly basis, but very regular, to understand how it's all going to pan out and work out. So I've got a couple of slides. I want to take you through what we do and some of our thoughts, and then hopefully at the end we've got some time for Q&A. So let me launch in there. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Okay. So a little bit about us, Unum Capital. Thank you very much for that introduction. We have been around a while. We were formed in 1999 as a traditional, I suppose, derivatives shares asset manager. And we've slowly but surely emerged or added to that repertoire over the years. And recently, we've now moved into the digital asset space. And we've done that under a brand called Coins. It's a brand new brand for us. We are partnered with the DigiShares team to build out this platform and build out our tokens. It seems like, there we go. Now I'm winning. So just a little bit about us. As I say, Unum Capital, we have a bit of depth in this space. We've been doing this quite a while. we're over 20 years. We have existing clients, existing assets, and we've typically been in the traditional investment, hedge fund, and trading space. And as I said, recently we've started adding the digital assets, and that really is just, for us, it's just a different platform to get to the same clients we already service, and hopefully more in a more cost-effective, efficient, liquid manner. So we are taking literally what we already do in this traditional space and moving it into the digital space. And clearly, why are we doing this? So this is Geltec research, and this was done sort of earlier this year, and they identified that cryptocurrency, and clearly there's this misconception that cryptocurrency is digital assets, but clearly the question they asked was, would you buy cryptocurrency? And 27% of retail clients that they surveyed said yes, they would, and 9% of financial planners said they would. So that's a fairly large marketplace to market into. Secondly, we play in the private equity and the private debt space, and you can see, about 10 or 11% of clients said they would also invest in that space. And we see that is this great convergence or overlap between digital assets and private equity, private debt, real world assets. And that's where we want to play in that sort of overlapping space. Daily Investor also, in their research earlier this year, they found that there's a fairly large penetration of retail investors in the digital asset space. So if 19% of people are buying it, you want to be able to offer it. I must thank Klaus and his team. This is their slide, and I've adopted this a couple of times in our strategic thinking. I think they used it in one of their presentations. But what we found is that in digital assets, you've kind of got to be a master of multiple parts of your business. So you need to understand what asset are you going to digitize, what's the legal structure, which platform of technology, and clearly this is where we're working with the DigiShares guys, and then how you're going to distribute it, because it's pointless building all of these things and if you haven't got a sales force or you don't know how to sell it. And what we found is that even within these little silos, these operational silos, you still have really complex questions you have to answer. So for example, on the legal side, it's not just about what regulation you have to deal with. It's also about how do you structure the underlying SPV, how do you hold the asset, how do you make the offer to the public. It's all these sort of things that you have to get your head around when you're in this space. So as I said earlier, the FSCA decided to include crypto assets, and rightly so, as a financial product under the regulation, and that is both from a Cat 1, which is advice and intermediary services, and Cat 2, which is discretionary asset management. And we are doing both. So we have a Cat 1 license, so that means you can intermediate and give an advice. So we've asked for them to add that to our licensing, and we've also want to do discretionary assets where we act with discretion on buying and selling the underlying digital assets. And the deadline for applications is end of November, and I worry for anybody who hasn't had their application in yet, because I think there's going to be quite a bottleneck and quite a rush towards the end of the month at the regulator to get these applications in. So what do we have to really care about when we think about regulation in South Africa? And it's all about the determination of fit and proper. Phase is about your capital adequacy. How do you understand your product? What's your level of knowledge? Do you have a robust business model? All these sort of things that you need to worry about when you kind of look at the code of conduct determination of fit and proper. The other thing that we think about in this digital asset space is, how do you do your client due diligence? How do you bring them on board? How do you do that KYC, that initial onboarding onto your digital platform? Well, how do the flow of funds work? If you're doing a rand-denominated contract, fine. But if you're now doing a dollar-denominated and then into crypto, how do you do cross-border payments? Is it going to be a self-custodied wallet? And then anti-money laundering. Do you go with just whitelisted wallets, or is it laissez-faire? Now, in our business model, clearly we want to comply with anti-money laundering, so we only allow whitelisted wallets. So in our smart contracts, we don't want you to be able to just freely transfer our instrument around. We will only do it between clients that we've gone through a CDD process and know your client, and have become a whitelisted wallet. And that clearly impedes the number of people you can market and sell to. So these are the sort of things you need to think about when you do a license application in the Republic at the moment. The other sort of documents that the regulator is looking for at the moment is they want to see a business plan, a solid business plan, some continuity, succession planning. You've got to have your complaints resolution and policy in place. You've got to think about your conflicts of interest policy, disaster management. You need a compliance program. You know, there's a lot. All the traditional phase requirements that we've dealt with over the last 20, 30 years, and we've got used to as traditional financial services providers. The guys coming into the crypto asset space, a lot of them come from a technology background. These are not necessarily things that they think about from a regulatory point of view. And this is the sort of stuff, it's easy to put out a white paper. You know, you can talk about your tokenomics on your digital asset, but it's these other things that underpin your business from a regulatory point of view that you need to think about. And you need to also think about who are your service providers. You've got to have accounting, auditing, internal compliance, potentially outsourced compliance, and clearly your platform provider as well. And if you look at our team, I think this is what you're going to find in a regulated digital asset business in South Africa. You're going to find depth in compliance, finance, operations, administration, strategy, risk management. These are the sort of things that you don't think of immediately when you think about digital assets. You always think about the tech. How am I going to build this thing? How do I deal with the tokenomics? What is my workflow process for onboarding clients, etc.? You don't necessarily always think about the depth you need in terms of legal and compliance and risk management. So, I mean, what are we trying to do with coins? And I think I'm running short on a bit of time here, so I'm going to go through these ones quite quickly. So we're looking at real assets. We're going to leave the exchanges to someone else. We're looking about using tokenization to take real assets and offer them to the retail public. And we think there's an economic imperative here, that there is parts of our industry that our retail clients cannot access through traditional private equity structures, hedge funds, etc., that digital assets can unlock, both from a transparency, ease of use, liquidity. It's those sort of imperatives that we think digital assets can assist with. So, as I said, this is and once again, I think this overlaps with what Klaus was saying earlier. We want to have improved access. We want you to be able to buy something very easily on your mobile. We want to bring liquidity to the illiquid. And there's some of the instruments that we deal with, and I've got one of them just now as an example, which is completely liquid. We want to try create some liquidity using digital assets. We want to help entrepreneurs raise capital. I mean, there's a lot of businesses out there. South Africa needs growth, needs entrepreneurs, needs jobs. I think this is a way that we can assist with that, where we can create platforms for capital raising. We are particularly concentrating on real world assets. It's one of the spaces we're in. We currently have a book of probably 600-700 million of real world assets that sit in our traditional private equity type world. And we want to bring that into the sort of crypto space or the digital asset space. But we'll also look at financial assets, bringing some of those on board on platform. And we want the secondary market as well, because we want trade. You know, we want willing buyer, willing seller on platform. Yeah, just that's a little bit of what our goals and our objectives. I'm not going to talk too much about that. I think I've chatted about this. The one thing that's very interesting from this slide that we've still got to get our heads around is, who's your administrator? How's your custodian? How are you going to do custody? I think that's where a lot of people trip up. You know, how are you going to be the custodian for these assets? How do you plug into financial intermediaries who won't have the licensing initially to sell your product? It's all fine and well, you create this wonderful exchange or this platform, and then you go out to financial planners and they are not licensed to sell your product. Creates a regulatory problem for them. That means you can only go direct to the public, and that's, you know, then you need marketing effort, social media, etc. You know, so I mean, how have we positioned ourselves from a brand point of view? This is going to be fairly niche. We're going to stick in the short term in the digital, the real world assets, and we'll build out a little bit from then onwards. Who do we target? Our typical client is fairly affluent and high net worth. They're 35 to 55. They have an above average risk tolerance and a reasonably high level of financial literacy. That excludes a huge part of the market, I understand. But I'm going to leave those to the guys who are able to deal with more retail, entry-level retail clients. We have a specific target market, and we want to offer them private equity-like products, real-world assets. initially, and then we want to build it out. And a lot of the time we want to deal through financial advisor channel. We want to partner with financial advisors, wealth managers, etc., who understand digital assets and want to partner with us. So here's a typical example of one of the assets we would like to put on platform. This is our bee fund. We currently own, I think it's about 3,000 or 4,000 beehives. We typically generate a 12 to 16% rate of return on honey and pollination. And this is something that's awesome. It's awesome for the world, the environment. It's got a great rate of return. It's got a feel-good factor. We want to kind of offer this to a retail client base on an easy to buy platform, and let them participate in owning their own hive. And that's kind of where we want to go with these sort of projects. I mean, we've got a livestock fund as well. We've got a private debt fund. We're working with partners on block property, which is a property fund. And these are the sort of things we're going to build out over time on a digital asset platform. So that is me. I think I was hopefully kept to my time. I'll hand it back to yourselves.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. I think that was a great place to start with when we're talking about tokenization. So Mark has taken us through a couple of things that we need to consider when it comes to tokenization. And, today we're talking about tokenization in Africa, and he has covered, an expansive set of rules for us. So, when we're looking at tokenization, I wrote so many things down. So let me just share some. So he started by saying, it's not just about submitting a white paper. Many people who are going into tokenization just think, once we have our white paper submitted, we have our work done. And it's much deeper than that. Mark took us through some processes and procedures that we need to consider. Your business model itself, you need to go way deeper into frameworks, policies, processes within your organization, considering other things like your technology, the assets itself, your team members, what they bring to the table, the expertise that you have in your team. And then you also need to consider other things like risk, things like custody, how you custody, your assets, and so many other things. He talked about distribution as well. And of course, my favorite part, which is legal structure. So thank you so much again, Mark, for taking us through that. It was really enjoyable and quite thorough. So we're going to be going, I don't know if we have any questions. Do we have any questions for anyone currently before we move ahead to our next speaker? So I don't see any hands up. Okay, so we're going to go right ahead to Robert, our next speaker for the day. Thank you, Mark. Robert Murua is from CPEP Limited. Robert is a successful entrepreneur with a passion for sustainable development and environmental conservation. He's a consultant and partner for businesses and organizations looking to expand their operations in Africa. Robert founded DashQ in 2009 as an aviation company that specializes in cargo and freight charters for humanitarian aid and disaster relief in affected war-torn zones and disaster-ravaged African states. He's also a leader in renewable energy sector, co-founding Masha Energy in South Africa and Tana Power in Kenya. And he is a dedicated advocate for tokenization of assets. Robert offers consulting services in renewable energy, security technology, civil works, and wastewater management. He believes that sustainable development in Africa can be achieved through innovative solutions and partnership with local communities. So Robert is going to be taking us on his own take as we continue our discussion on tokenization in Africa. So Robert, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you so much to DigiShares, and thank you for all who are participating in this webinar. My name is Robert, and I'm passionate about, sorry, I missed out my video. And I'm very passionate about digitization in Africa. I love the evolution and basically the current situation in Africa in terms of tokenizing the African continent is slightly different compared to the European market. So with the token economy, we as CPEP are looking at educating the masses. I think that is more important because a lack of a broader understanding of the distributed ledger systems and tokenization as a whole and blockchain to the public at large and among even decision makers has caused a bit of unclear legal and regulatory framework. So we are starting from scratch, basically letting people know what tokenization is all about, because most people believe that the best known type of token is your cryptocurrencies, and which exist only in tangible and intangible digital assets. So based on that, we've looked at ways that we can encourage various stakeholders to participate, and we are looking at even doing some case studies here in Kenya. We are looking at a joint effort with various stakeholders and see how we can actually show them the value of tokenization in Africa. It will also have a positive spillover effects and synergies with many other upcoming business models. So what we're looking at when we're talking the various business models, I know property is one of the bigger players in industry vertical, but here in Africa, where people can participate in projects where they can, have some inclusive participation. So fractional distribution basically is what we're actually looking at in principle, how we can strengthen the African sovereignty and make it more competitive by reducing transaction costs through a combination of efficiency gains and better identity and verification solutions. We love the fact that it's a fast and secure automated execution of business and financial processes with lower transaction costs, enables the tokenization to be more available and generally have a positive influence on economic growth. However, we are also trying to get the government to also participate. So we're asking ourselves, what steps can stakeholders in Africa take to foster the token economy between now and the future? So one of the main things for us, what we've seen is education. As mentioned, there's different groups which define and understand tokens, and in the way they understand that is very different from different aspects, looking at how they can benefit their daily lives. So we have to look at it in a perspective where we have an inclusive economy where it affects on the daily basis. And here in Kenya, we are lucky enough because we've kind of we've done some giant leaps with M-Pesa, for example. So you can see that has affected directly to households in terms of how they can utilize digitalization, and tokenization is basically what we need to gain trust on, because in context of data security, that is very key. If companies and citizens can learn about tokenizations, I think the benefits outdo the limitations, and Africa will advance towards a fully fledged token economy. That is on the education side, and I think awareness is also very important. We need to drive a successful transformation towards a token economy. It's important to foster awareness of existing token use cases. So, for example, like for energy projects, they need to understand, they need a POC. So I like what Mark was saying, at least they've gotten to do something together with DigiShares. I think POCs are very important. They bring awareness closer to the market. And I think that is a must coming from an African cultural audit, because Africans love the touch and feel. They want to see things happening before they can actually look at promoting or even benefiting from certain these new technologies that are coming up. And in this case, we're talking about tokenization. So thirdly, I think communication is very important. I think a simple non-technical communication about tokenization should be constantly engaged in all stakeholders. Communicating concrete use cases and applications will help in terms of the technical detail, which Mark has also highlighted. I think that will help a broader audience to participate in tokenization, and the consistent use of terminologies would further accelerate and support this communication. So they need to learn these terms. I know, like I mentioned earlier, everybody knows about the cryptocurrency, but they don't know what else, you know, what tokenization is all about. So what we would like also is for government and legislators and the regulators. I think those are some of the impediments Mark has mentioned. I mean, recently they've just gotten their license, and this has been going on for, I think, not so long, but Africa is slowly but surely coming about. And I think legislators and regulators play a crucial role in developing a token economy. Their key responsibility should be creating a simple, harmonized legal framework throughout Africa that incentivizes companies and private citizens to further drive tokenization while creating a secure legal space. So if we can have a standardized kind of a framework for Africa, I think that will really be helpful. This could include the promotion of potential new business models. I think we're not limited in terms of our creativity and business models. I think I've spoken that with DigiShares for quite a few months. And there are certain measures which we also need to put into place in terms of fraud and scams. We know people are kind of, you know, creative also in those spaces. So we need to create an environment for testing new projects. So even though we're using this technology, we need to test new projects in Africa. And I think that will also be necessary to reduce uncertainty and eliminate, you know, gray markets that Mark has spoken about. Furthermore, governments should also support and facilitate technologies that have a direct and positive impact on tokenization. So if we can marry and merge certain technologies, like I mentioned, M-Pesa, which is very popularly used here in Kenya, 97% of Kenyans use M-Pesa. And that has also helped in terms of building credibility, because our government has been involved and they've supported and they've facilitated this technology. So we need to also engage governments, legislators, and regulators. Things like digital signatures, smart contracts, and authentication and authorization. Those are the things that I mentioned earlier, that we should be able to talk more about those to give people a bit more confidence. And I believe governments can promote that market. Also, we could drive some launch and launchpad initiatives to advance innovation and spread awareness by introducing examples of tokenized business models. So people really want to affect their lives, not just for the affluent people, but we need to think about you know, a more inclusive model which caters for their businesses. In addition to the public sector, we should actively support promising use cases. So we should look at various use cases for citizens and even corporates to further engage in this paradigm shift. Investments in tokenization projects should be facilitated by easier access to capital. I think the capital is something which will really fast track tokenization. This can be made possible if, for example, African Union and member states introduced a variety of measures, including special funds, innovation programs, and investment in academic research. I think those are the things which maybe African Union also can be involved in the African tokenization. I think those are some of the government bodies that we're talking about, and continental bodies, which can be able to maybe subsidize some development of special technology clusters with a focus on the token economy. That could be another way to attract international professionals and corporates to this space. Actively supporting existing and emerging initiatives and highly relevant use cases is important, but it's not enough. We still need to give more possibilities and advantages of tokenization and make it abundantly clear how it works. The uncertainties surrounding data and consumer protection. Those are some of the things which a lot of governments have put into play, you know, with cybersecurity and data protection, consumer protection. So we need to give people a bit of more confidence on that. Mark also support him with the idea of central banks and banks. I think many of the activities currently being performed by financial institutions or intermediaries, for that matter, like Mark said, would be a more advantageous platform for them to play a crucial role in the future of token economy. I think it's important for banks to play a big role because their role soon will be obsolete. I'm sure that is why Mark also has gravitated towards the token economy, to tokenization in general. I think banks should also prepare for tokenization of assets, real estate, like we mentioned, stable coins, securities, for instance, what DigiShares is doing, which is very remarkable. We can provide a commensurate infrastructure which existing banks can participate. I think the banks are a good platform, and they can carry out that task into their current role in the market, and that would require also, again, some regulatory skills. And banks already have some of those regulatory skills, like you mentioned, the KYC. Banks, I think, are well placed to assume that role. In addition, we should also prepare for further product service offerings to provide consumers and companies in the tokenization economy. Examples include the provision of wallets. I'm sure people already have wallets. I think people also need to understand all these terminologies and how they work, because that is part and parcel of the whole infrastructure. We need to generate a higher consumer engagement with these new technologies, integrating tokenization in current products. So that's what I was saying. We need to have this in our daily use. As Africans, I think the only way is to have something which you're using continuously. I mean, in Kenya, we've done very well. It started in 2006. Again, I'm just mentioning about M-Pesa. And looking at that example, I think Africans can make real giant leaps if it's rubbed into them, and gradually they get more intrigued into getting into the tokenization platform. And we need to also probably look at tokenized programmable payments. Payment gateway systems could become key to the development of automated supply chains. And I mean, we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. We need to also think about those things and see how the business models can match, so that we increase our industry verticals, and not just on the properties and on the securities. We need to think on a more. We need to have a good African cultural audit and understand what we need to look at for the African market. Corporates also can participate in this token economy. Most use cases and applications, corporates haven't yet embraced that in Africa, and SMEs. I think successful implementation of a number of broad-based use cases and best practice examples can be driven even with corporates. And I think awareness and the benefits of tokenization in the market will boost the adoption. I think I've said quite a mouthful. Citizens, I think, should be able to see how it affects their lives. And I think a good illustration of that in visuals, like Mark said, I think that is very important, how it's presented. It shouldn't be too technical. It should be something which is fun and creative. I think the language which we should use in trying to wow the market here in Africa is more an illustrated version, which is simple for them. And mostly, I think what specifically governments and regulators should do next is to market entrepreneurs. Market entrepreneurs to actively communicate this, because Africa is made up mostly of small businesses. So if governments can push this, and corporates together with SMEs and entrepreneurs, I think that is key for the future outlook and adoption. Policymakers also, I think, can actively showcase the feasibility and benefits of tokenization by providing concrete use cases. I think that is very important, again, highlighting initiatives that can deliver positive user experience and prove their value. So I like that Mark has managed to do some POC. I think that is very important. It builds a lot of confidence. I wish we could do the same here in Kenya. Citizens should be able to actively be educated. They can educate themselves. So that also helps for direct citizens to be able to educate themselves and those around them. Governments and educators generally will ensure broad access to information about the risks, accessibility, available service providers, and consumers, consumer protection in the token economy. Again, consumer protection is very important. In a lot of countries, they put very strong regulations around consumer protection and data security. I think those are the things maybe which we can talk about when we are pushing for the tokenization in Africa. And in short, basically that is that I prepared, and I'm quite enthusiastic about the future because I can see that is the way we are going. I like the fact that private has been pushing this, but we just also need to also get the government involved and all other stakeholders involved, including ordinary citizens, individual citizens. And that's my take on the African tokenization. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Robert.
Yeah, thank you.
That's another, so you've built on top now of what Mark basically set, for us. So for those that are just joining us, we're speaking today about tokenization in Africa, and Robert just took us through some points that are very important for taking Africa forward when we're talking about token economy and tokenization. So I'll just mention just some of the few things that I have here. Robert has emphasized for us that it's important for the governments to participate in the token economy. So the governments can't be seen to be taking the back seat here. We're trying to progress Africa, and tokenization for the future is very essential. He also spoke about education and awareness, gave us a couple of use cases, to consider, and that it's important for corporates to encourage the token economy by introducing more use cases to the space, and for us to push small businesses as well and entrepreneurs, because that's quite important to be able to drive tokenization in Africa. Robert also talked about communication. I like the speaking about harmonization, because that usually is an issue with Africa. Everybody is working in silos. No one is taking the other country along. And in order for us to progress as a continent, it's important that within the countries we have harmonization, and also within Africa itself, countries are working together, collaborating in this token economy. So I'm just going to briefly emphasize some of the things that Mark mentioned as well. So Mark started the foundation. We're talking about proper models, getting your licensing, having the proper frameworks within your organization, and collaborating with others in that, focusing on the technology itself, the assets, and then distribution as well. And he also emphasized some of the things that they're doing within Unum Capital. And then Robert has also emphasized all these other additional elements for us. When we're able to build, educate ourselves, it will attract even foreign investors and others globally to Africa to make this move forward. So I think we're doing great on time. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box so that we can take them afterwards. And then we're also going to be having a panel session later on. So I'm going to move to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Gavin Stassen from Natra Coin. So Gavin is the founder and owner of StassMed Hospital Consultants. He is a very versatile entrepreneur with a remarkable track record in healthcare industry and an active involvement in various innovative ventures. As the director of Natra Coin, Gavin plays a pivotal role in spearheading groundbreaking initiatives in the realm of fintech, particularly the Natra Coin blockchain payment platform. Under Gavin's leadership, NatureCoin has emerged as an influential player in facilitating secure and legal transfer of investment in the Grenada Citizenship by Investment Program. The NatureCoin blockchain payment platform ensures a seamless transfer of funds from investors to developers, offering a safe and efficient solution. Gavin's commitment to transparency and security is evident as the platform guarantees timely payments to developers' bank accounts, free from complications. The team of specialists at NatureCoin is dedicated to ensuring effortless transactions for investors and individuals interested in leveraging this platform through the provided contact forms. So I'd like to hand over now to Gavin to take his own session. Welcome.
Hi, Buki, and everybody. Thank you so much for all the kind things you mentioned there. I don't know half of what you said to be the case, but we are trying. We're definitely trying. So thank you for that. I also like to thank Klaus and the team at DigiShares for the opportunity to have a bit of a say. And I think I'll probably talk a lot about my background and where I come from, to sort of give you an idea that I'm not the fintech guy that you believe me to be. I'm a private hospital developer, and yeah, so I think also the previous speakers laid a very good foundation for me. So I can waffle on about a bit about what I'm doing currently and how Klaus and DigiShares has helped me in putting something proper together. So I'd like to share my screen at this stage. Possible, there you go. Can you all see this? Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, lovely. So as I mentioned, I'm a private hospital owner and developer. My history spans about 30 years in the development and as owner of private hospital facilities in South Africa. We developed quite a few major hospitals, and it culminated in the listing of the Netcare Hospital Group on the JSE in South Africa. And after the listing, I decided, listen, you know what, I'm really very interested in food security for Africa, and got involved with a few good, small specialists in the food production industry. And we basically put together quite a few food products as well as traditional medicine. And so what happened, we tried to get into the African market, and we had a lot of interest, especially from Nigeria. But we found ourselves really bogged down with a lot of red tape, especially when it came to, your centralized cross-border payments, and which really, led me to sort of counteract that by exploring other forms of payment. So started, venturing into that and looking at, explored many of these opportunities. And what happened then is basically we started doing a white paper, and we developed something to counteract this. But at the time, unfortunately, looking at the tokenization of commodities, the on-ramping and off-ramping, raised serious issues for us. We couldn't really, get to grips with that. And sadly, we had to abandon that. So, but today a lot easier for people to depending, of course, on the jurisdictions where you're in and the specific African country, it's become a lot easier. But I'm talking a couple of years ago. So then COVID hit, and we had obviously major issues then, and it changed our focus as well. So we started producing food, and in conjunction with the Rotary Club, we produced quite a bit of food for Africa. Just to get to the new slide, yeah, sorry, that's sort of my hospital experience there, just to get back to that now. So we designed hospitals, we license them, we built them, we equipped them, we staffed them, and obviously we own them as well. So that is pretty much our my background. So again, you can see that it's not in tokenization. I think the fact that we were stuck trying to get our food sources out into Africa, that's what got me really into the tokenization or into crypto per se. And that's pretty much where we're at. We've had dealings with Nigeria, as I've mentioned. We've had dealings in Senegal with quite a few big groups. As you all know, that Akon, he's still trying to put together his facility there, in Senegal, looking at the Wakanda city that he's putting together. So he's still at that from what I know. And yeah, that is my experience. I can talk about the Nigeria, Senegal, and the South African experience that I have. And I find, obviously, looking at Nigeria, it would appear that people there are very eager, to pioneer tokenization. And it was the first country where you could actually buy a cell phone using Bitcoin. And it's obviously, people there are obviously very pro tokenization, and that's from my experience. Now, you might say that I don't get out a lot, but I think that in South Africa, and even in Africa, and still such time we face all our challenges with regards to the regulatory systems, and once that's developed and in place, we would always have a bit of an uphill battle there. But the main thing is that it's moving forward. We know that banks obviously can't stop us as well, and the banks are actually getting onto the bandwagon as well in terms of their own coins that they're producing or that they're trying to mint. But yeah, that's basically our experience. So looking at the food packs that I've mentioned earlier, we have only gotten to South Africa per se. And I said we're also experiencing a lot of issues here because a lot of people would like to buy our product using crypto. And it's just been a bit of a nightmare because, frankly, people are not too clued up when it comes to crypto or when it comes to tokenization of these commodities. And we find it still to be a bit of an experience. I have a lot of friends who are still baffled when it comes to tokenization. It's always a huge sort of topic for discussion when we get together, because the understanding is not quite there. So I think that's what is really, really very frustrating in a way for me and with our business, is to educate people in this model. So thanks to Klaus and DigiShares, it makes it a lot easier for us to look at this and to look at tokenization and to be able to be players in this market. So I'd like to take you back to 1850, just to go back in history a bit there. We found, obviously, back with the British sort of colonizing and carrying on the way they did, we found that a lot of people found their way to the Caribbean. And that brings me sort of up to where I'm currently at. We are currently exploring, and we're quite far down the line with the development in the Caribbean. And again, this is sort of, my participation in the webinar. It's basically, putting a different perspective on tokenization, the African tokenization, because, as I said, in 1850, 11,000 people were displaced and found themselves working in the sugar fields in the Caribbean. But that sort of, as I said, that's the African angle for me. And looking at what we're looking at developing in the Caribbean currently is a plastic surgery clinic, hotel and spa. So I've spoken to Klaus about this on numerous occasions, and Klaus I think he's probably sick and tired of, Gavin coming in and, taking a lot of his time. in terms of this development. It's taken a good 2-3 years for us to get to the stage where we can finally say that everything is in place for us to finally launch tokens and on our platform. So we obviously bought the license from DigiShares as well, the platform now, where we're hoping now to launch our token soon, probably in the new year. There's quite a few things that we still need to do, but again, that is my forte. I'm a developer and literally into the hospital and hospitality industry, really, with the hotel and the spa now. We have everything in place, and it's just basically saying that we will be launching tokens soon, and hopefully in the new year on the DigiShare exchange as well. So again, you know what, that is my experience. It's an uphill battle all the time, but I think nothing comes easy. And when it comes to tokenization in Africa, there's huge potential. And I think if we just persevere, we'll end up winning. So because Africa is ready, and I think with everything happening, you know, every year you look at how things have transformed and how things have developed in the space, and there's huge potential, obviously, in Africa. So yeah, again, just to you know, thank Klaus and everybody involved in this space to making things happen for developers like myself, who are not really too clued up in this space, but you know, having these platforms for us to play. It's a huge opportunity, and I think, you know, developers all around Africa can certainly take advantage of what DigiShares are doing, and to be able to get their businesses on the map. So yeah, just another one. Thanks to Klaus, and thanks to everybody. I think it's very limited experience in Africa, but I think at the end of the day, you know, we are all moving ahead, and it makes us really very happy to see where things are going in the tokenization space. So that is all I have to offer, and but yeah, thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Gavin. I think that was pretty wonderful. So Gavin has given us another perspective coming from experience and his own perspective. So Gavin has shared with us about food relief, food packs, and also how examples of what we can do in the hospital and hospitality space. So some of the use cases that we're seeing for tokenization. I particularly like the reference to people in a community or region participating, being educated and aware of tokenization. That actually helps, you know, your product and your use case move faster. You mentioned Nigeria and how people, you know, you can get a cell phone being paid, you know, using tokens or crypto in the economy. So community is a very essential when it comes to token economy. You can't do anything without the people in the market. So the community is important, and they need to be educated, they need to be aware, and that in itself will begin to drive, you know, adoption of token economy. You also talked about some of your projects, the Caribbean development and the plastic surgery, hotel and spa. Those are exciting prospects, and it's good, you know, you've mentioned that here, so people can have a perspective on how tokenization can come to play, regardless of the industry or product it is that you're bringing to the market. So thank you so much, Gavin, for that interesting perspective and sharing your experience as well. So we're going to go to the next speaker. Please stay tuned as well. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat box. It's getting more interesting. As you can see, we're looking at it from different points of view. And of course, DigiShares is coming to play in being mentioned in a number of these presentations as well, talking about what DigiShares is doing and how you can be involved. Our next speaker is Lethu Malimela. I hope I pronounced that properly, sorry, the managing director of Mavusu Capital. So Lethu began his career in financial markets in the heady markets of 2007. He was responsible for the trading desk of a Johannesburg stockbroker where he traded on the JSE on behalf of private clients. In 2014, he felt the need to establish his own company, hence the founding of Mavusu Capital. Lethu is a BComs honors holder in economics from the University of KwaZulu-Natal and a BComs honors in business management as well from the University of South Africa. So I'm going to hand over to you, Lethu, to take your session. Looking forward to it. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Bubi. We appreciate the opportunity, and thank you to Ashley and Klaus at DigiShares who've been anticipating this opportunity. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, that one. Okay, you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. So, so just a bit about myself and the company. So, Mavusu Capital is, in terms of what we do, somewhat similar. Mark was speaking earlier in terms of the type of business that we are quite similar, but we are what's known as a Category 2, a discretionary fund manager based in Johannesburg, Rosebank. I am the founder of a company which was founded in 2014. We started trading for private clients on the JSE. My own background is in stockbroking, as Vicky has alluded to. Been trading for private clients since 2007. I started Mavusu Capital in 2014, and since then I've had a couple of other colleagues join me in this company as directors. They are, you can see their names there. I'm going to speak a bit about our experience in terms of crypto assets and how we are looking to use this technology. I think it's very enabling in terms of capital raising as well as leveling the playing field, because you think of banks, how entrenched they are, how big and strong they are. Any new product that comes on the market, obviously would certainly favor those who are entrenched. But I think a small outfit such as ourselves and other service providers in South Africa, we are very much excited by such developments, because this technology allows us to become more creative, to be innovative, and to bring on board services which they act to level the playing field, which is something I'm going to touch on in a moment. I'm not going to delve much into regulation. I think Mark has spoken a bit about that. We are in the same boat in terms of regulation. We are one of those FSPs that will be taking advantage of the exemption and applying for extension of our license this month, which is due. That exemption is due to expire on the 30th of November. That's in terms of the Financial Advisory Intermediary Services Act. That's one of the pieces of legislation that is very important in our industry. The other one is the Financial Markets Act, which is well, it does exist. It's not just under development, but it is being adjusted, and that's very much because it has to be amended substantially, because the entire regulatory space in South Africa has not been made for the digital environment, so to speak. South Africa is known for, especially being a developing market, is known for having functional financial markets and very, very efficient and orderly. But the market is very much sort of coming from a paper-based environment, obviously, and it needed to be amended for these new type of products. Excuse me. The last thing I want to talk about under regulation is the financial task force, because that is quite a topical thing, both in South Africa and globally at the moment, because of all the terrorist financing and the need to limit that globally. But in South Africa, this FATF has had quite an impact, because South Africa being grey listed, I think earlier this year, we definitely felt the impact, even in the weakening of the South African currency, the rand. So whatever comments that this task force has to make and the recommendations that they make, they're quite pertinent for our market. So with respect to crypto assets, the FATF has made the comment that it's something of a wild west sort of environment, but they're not obviously going to sort of limit it, but they have made some recommendations though with respect to virtual assets services providers, and I just want to mention a few of them. The recommendation firstly is that service providers need to be regulated for anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing, for obvious reasons, because it's going to be a very dynamic environment. So it needs to be doing what people's identity and so on. Secondly, service providers must be licensed, and we are one of those that are licensed, and we are extending our license with respect to that. And then lastly, these service providers need to be subjected to effective systems for monitoring. And as I've said, it's important for people to know, it's important for authorities to know what's happening, because there has been some rather unsavory movements of bitcoins, people stealing out of wallets and things like that. So the public needs to be protected. Yeah, not to scare people, but I think that being a new sort of asset class and being so dynamic with digital, it's important for service providers to be sort of part of the network that spreads the word about awareness of how dynamic the space is, and how people can protect themselves, and the do's and don'ts in terms of moving funds in the web. So I'm just going to touch on how a use case for us in terms of the tokenization. We are looking specifically at the only use for us for crypto is the tokenization of real estate assets, which we are looking to make available to the public by unitization and tokenization of a private equity fund. So in South Africa, we have a social housing program, which is a government program under the Human Settlements Department. And there's an agency there, Social Housing Regulatory Authority, which basically promotes investment in social housing. This is a way of essentially trying to ameliorate what was apartheid spatial planning you know, living working class communities not being adequately accommodated, especially in urban areas. So this is quite exciting for us. What we are doing is that we are partnering with real estate developers who would have received a grant for that development. But what we've found is that many of these people actually don't have all the requirements for that grant. And the main thing there, what's tend to be the stumbling block, is this 20% equity that they must bring to the party to unlock 70% grants. So we put together a private equity fund that will be investing in these projects. So what we are doing, therefore, that private equity fund will be tokenized, unitized, and so members of the public in purchasing tokens will be part of the scheme, whereby we buy, we'll bring in 20% of our equity into this project. We walk away 30% on behalf of our investors, and that obviously very positively will affect the bottom line in terms of those investments. This is a schematic of one of the developments. It's quite an ambitious development in the Northwest province. This particular developer is looking to develop more than 500 units during the course of 2024, and this is just an artistic impression of what it's the various blocks, what it looks like. South Africa has quite an acute housing problem, and the Minister of Human Settlements last year made a comment about this, saying that there is a realization that the scale of delivery required to the desired development outcomes may not be achieved with the current project pipeline and funding trajectory. So essentially what the Minister is saying is that in the limited public fiscus is not necessarily adequate to cater for this, and therefore that offers a very exciting opportunity for intermediaries such as ourselves to bring in members of the public through a private equity fund, tokenize it, and basically allow people to enjoy the fruits of their investment. Yeah, this is quite a daunting number, but it comes from 2016, 2017. A survey was done, or a report was published, whereby for social housing alone, not to mention other forms of housing, but for social housing alone, the backlog then was 320,000, and with the issues that we've had in between relating to COVID-19, that delivery has really been minimal in the interim. So this figure is unfortunately even higher today. So yet another reason why we are excited to be here. It's not a long presentation of mine. That's all that I have to say, really, except I think that with respect to tokenizing of social housing units, it's something which is we believe is quite innovative, and that it democratizes the participation in real estate investment. And it's a secure investment in residential real estate, and so we do think that people will benefit from that. I don't know how I did in terms of time, but that's all I have to say for now.
All right, thank you so much, Lethu, for that wonderful presentation. I think you've taken us to another angle again by highlighting some issues within the token economy, like regulation, scams. I like the inclusion of the FATF educating us, the attendees here. Mark, like you said, had talked about some of the South African regulations previously and licensing. And so it was nice for you to be able to emphasize that a bit more for us. Letu has also given us an example by looking at a social housing project and program and taking us through the different steps Mavusu Capital has done by offering tokenized assets, available to the public, where they can actually get invest in private equity funding. I think that's the business model that you have adopted for that particular project. So thank you so much for that. Also, he also emphasized that there's market opportunity in Africa. So we need to focus on that part. And I think we'll delve a bit more into that in our panel session. We have a question here which says, dear Lethu, are there any secondary trading platforms available for tokenized real estate? So if you can just take that quickly for us before we proceed.
Okay, so we will be listing the token, or rather issuing on DigiShares. Thereafter, we'll be taking it on to be listed on the real estate exchange. So that is the secondary market where people can then buy and sell those securities, tokens, as and when they wish, on a willing buyer, willing seller, market supply basis. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much. So I see there's another question, but I think we'll take it once we're just handling the panel session. I'd like us to go ahead to take our final speaker before the panel session. And our final speaker is Upa Rawani. So Upa, if you could just unmute yourself and introduce yourself so we can take your session and then go into the panel session. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for allowing me to speak today. I don't know if anyone can see me because I don't see myself. Or anyone can hear me.
But we can hear you.
You can hear me. Wonderful. My presentation today is a little bit, it was long, but after listening to everyone who presented, I realized I can just give some summary of things that I believe were not really touched. But most importantly is to talk about the government coming on board, not to be stringent in their regulation in as far as the blockchains and cryptocurrencies are concerned, but they need to come in as to help, because South Africa at the moment, we've got a problem, and a serious problem. Small businesses or startups, they don't have a support system. But I believe with tokenization, the problem could be solved. Like with our slogan at AMG, we are saying, tokenization is here to remove the barrier of entry into real estate. There is a hype of property investment in the country, where everybody believes that they need to at least have one property as an investment vehicle. But the biggest enemy is most of them, they don't have the money to fund that property. But tokenization is here to help. But if we're going to have government that presses on that, making or putting red tapes for people to access this is going to be a problem again. But with government coming on board, saying, yes, we are here to help, let's make everything a little bit slower so that everyone can access this. I think that will help a lot. Again, there is a serious need of education in the Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin as such, but in the blockchain and cryptocurrencies, more especially now in tokenization, because it is a fact that tokenization could be a secret to unlocking Africa's economic potential. The question is, who would be there to play the part, or how many of us knows about this tokenization? And the more people know about this, the better. And if maybe we could be able to drive this to the masses, because they are the ones that are gonna push this hard. When I talk about the masses, I'm talking about people who are on the ground, people who are buying from the retail stores like Abu ShopRite, Checkers. Those are the masses I'm talking about. Because if those can jump into this tokenization, then the whole industry and the whole country will go up in flame. And I believe we still have a long way to go. But again, in the finance sector, tokenization is going to help a lot, because at the moment, the world says there's 1.7 billion people that are unbanked. And if we could just tap on those people, or get those 1.7 billion people, then we are taking a different game altogether. I was listening to who's the presenter? Yeah, I just forgot the name, but he presented before the last speaker now. He was talking about the Caribbean. He was talking about the hospitals and that is what people need now. Because in our informal settlement, there are people who get sick during the night. And this government cannot provide service because they don't have clinics. They don't have hospitals around. So in those informal settlements, if the communities were to come together with the knowledge of this tokenization, those communities were going to be able to service themselves without having to wait for someone else to come and give them service. So there, again, we still have a way to go. But it just needs a lot of education, which is something that at AMG we are good at. I think for that, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Chupa, for that presentation. Very brief and very key points on what we're discussing today. So I'm just going to take the, let me see, questions. Okay, I think we can just go into the panel session. We'll take the question in the chat box for the speakers during the panel session. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about tokenization in Africa, and the session is brought to you today by DigiShares. We have on the panel today Mark Whitman, Gavin Stassen, Robert Mura, Lethu Malimela, and Uparawane. And so we're going to go right into the questions. Tokenization in Africa. How are we getting Africa to the very next level with tokenization? And we all know that tokenization is very essential going into the future. So my very first question is going to go to Mark. And we're going to ask, when we look at tokenization in Africa, what do you believe are the most promising use cases for tokenization in Africa? We've heard about cryptocurrencies, we've heard about real estate. Going forward and trying to picture tokenization in the future, I think we'd like to have your take on the most promising use cases.
So I can only speak for what I'm involved in. I'm clearly real estate. We do a little bit of real estate, and I do think there's a massive opportunity there. We have a colleague who is running a business called Block Property, and he's looking at that as a use case. But from our side, we're looking at that side of financial services, which has been traditional, either discretionary intermediary services, where you would typically have gone onto an exchange, you would have bought something. I mean, the problem with the JSE at the moment, it's not a problem, but it's a limitation. There's very few listings on the JSE. So for retail clients who want to participate in the economy and the real economy, it's very difficult for them to buy most of these things on the JSE nowadays. So what we need to do is find other ways for retail clients to be able to tap into and access this real economy. And whether that's property, whether that's getting involved in solar, whether that's getting involved in livestock like we are getting involved in, you know, those sort of real assets, it's unlocking that, as I said earlier, making the illiquid liquid, you know, and making it accessible. So I do think there's a huge amount of use cases. It's just about giving, I like the word used earlier, access to that real economy to retail clients with an easy entry point and a low buy-in. You know, this is not the 1 million rand private equity hedge fund type client. This is the client with a couple of rand who want to get involved in the real economy. So sorry, that's fairly broad, but I do think we can galvanize quite a large part of our economy and put it on chain.
Thank you so much, Mark. That, you know, is a lot to think about going forward, especially for everyone basically in the system and token economy and driving it forward. I think we need to impute a lot of this into our systems. And based off what Mark has said, you know, making the liquid. My next question will go to Gavin. And I'm going to ask, how do you think, you know, tokenization can transform the financial markets in Africa? Or if you want to focus on a specific kind of market, the hospitality, you know, and hospital market that you are involved in, how can we actually transform, you know, these markets in Africa with tokenization?
I think yes, Buki. If you look at Africa, especially, you know, I mentioned my commodity side with a food. There's a lot of donations going into Africa, and I think if you capitalize on that and you actually work on tokenizing those assets, there'll be spin-offs for a lot of people, because you'll be able to trade, you'll be able to buy and sell. And if you open up those markets, it'll just make it so much easier for people to, first of all, get the food, and then also looking at hospitalization. As Opa mentioned, there's huge opportunity in Africa to tokenize your hospital facilities. And, you know, it's just amazing, you know, in terms of the utility type aspect, the utility coins and that, you can actually help a lot of people who are in need of surgery or medical treatment per se. So it can really transform the whole continent. And but just to get our hands on you know, to the actual platforms that can facilitate that is the big challenge. And the red tape, as I mentioned earlier as well, you know, the governments need to be a bit more lenient when it comes to your tokenization, and to make it possible for people to participate on whatever level they need to participate. But definitely looking at you know, USAID and all those guys that are out there putting money into Africa, if they do it via the tokenization platform, I think a lot of people would benefit. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. And that's a nice segue into the next question for Robert. You know, Robert had alluded earlier and talked a lot about government participation when it comes to tokenization, and how crucial it is for government to play a part. So I want you to address the aspect of how do you think, you know, government can make this easier for organizations within the space, and then even for government itself, because we know many times, from what we can see all over the continent, many of government bodies are struggling with Web3 generally, tokenization, and all, you know, this new blockchain, DLT, and emerging technologies. So what would you advise for the government going forward to the approach, that they need to take, moving this token economy forward, considering, that you had talked about the huge potential, that we have in the token economy for Africa?
Thanks so much, Buki. I identified a few stakeholders, and government and legislators and regulators are part and parcel of the stakeholders. And low-hanging solution is to establish task forces or advisory committees consisting of experts in blockchain and tokenization to guide the formulation of regulations. If we can conduct regular workshops and seminars for regulators to enhance their understanding of the technology and its potential benefits. So you'll find even those who work in these organizations or institutions or government agencies don't even know what tokenization is. They don't even know what distributed ledger systems are. They don't even know what blockchain is. So a task force needs to be put into place. Advisory committees need to be put into place, and experts to be able to conduct regular workshops, because this is a new paradigm shift. And it's got a huge potential to, an evolutionary potential, to change Africa. I like some of the things that I've heard. The ideas are unlimited. I mean, hospitals, we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about renewable energy. I mean, communities can own their own energy plants. They can become their own IPPs. Communities can participate in building a school, for example. We're looking at Web3. Those are some of the things which we also need to incorporate, technologies which we need to develop easily digestible educational material in terms of infographics. We need to have short videos explaining basics of tokenization. That is from an education and awareness point of view. So those are some of the low-hanging fruits, low-hanging solutions. So if we can distribute these materials through social media, local community centers, and educational institutions, I think we need to go to the grassroots to also support the government if indeed they are interested in establishing this token economy. Again, other players or stakeholders that I mentioned was central banks and banks. If we can collaborate with fintech companies, for example, I'm a part of a fintech company here in Kenya, and we can create pilot projects showcasing the benefits of tokenization. Tokenization should be something which is it should be in your daily business case. You should be able to feel that you're experiencing tokenization. We need to offer incentives. From a bank perspective, they need to actively participate in tokenization initiatives. And this goes back again to reduced regulatory burdens for innovative projects. Looking at your corporates and your SMEs, low-hanging solutions there would be to launch awareness campaigns targeting businesses, highlighting successful tokenization use cases. I like all the use cases I've had here, but again, corporates, SMEs, and even the existing banks, they need to establish partnerships with token solution providers like DigiShares, for example, to offer workshops to them. Like I mentioned, you find they don't even know how to describe what tokenization is all about, but they're in the environment where they can be the consulting services for businesses interested in exploring tokenization. Citizens, we need to create a user-friendly mobile applications. People are more into micro knowledge. We need to hyper-personalize this through some web platforms to allow citizens to interact with tokenized assets easily. We need to host community events and webinars to address common concerns and showcase the practical benefits of tokenization. If we have to look at government regulatory next steps, low-hanging solutions, I would say is probably to establish sandboxes for businesses to experiment with tokenization technologies in a controlled environment. Okay, again, we need to introduce pilot projects for specific sectors. I like the agriculture is a big thing. Real estate is very big. Demographics are growing. Agriculture we're looking at food security. So we need to demonstrate the tangible benefits of tokenization. And that is where the token market entrepreneurs also come in, because business models will change. And we need to actively engage with the regulatory bodies again to provide input on proposed regulations. So we need to engage with government so that we can also be able to participate in that policy making and propose certain regulations. We need to create specific guidelines. I'm sure with the DigiShares, with the experience and expertise they've got, we can guide specific guidelines to help businesses navigate the legal landscape. Again, the legal landscape goes back to regulatory. Policymakers and companies also need to showcase some success stories. We've had a lot of pilot projects which are ongoing. I don't think in Africa I've had one which is already going on, unless it's missed my ear. But all these are the ones which, the hospitals in Caribbean, those are in the process of being showcased. So if we can have a joint working group where we capitalize on already success stories of companies such as the ones who are in this panel, I think that will embrace the tokenization and emphasize also on job creation and economic growth. With tokenization, in terms of capital markets, it gives a bigger and a broader spectrum where people from all over the world can participate in projects. We don't have to depend on our usual institutions who provide us loans. We can have fractionalized economy, fractionalized distribution systems where people can participate in supporting certain projects. And through tokenization, that is very possible. So we need to organize industry-specific forums to facilitate this sort of dialogue between policymakers, businesses. We need to foster a collaborative approach to tokenization. And this is what I've been discussing with DigiShares. We don't need to rush so quickly, because the educational part with the citizens is what is going to trigger the evolutionary of tokenization in Africa. So we need to encourage also in a citizen aspect, as one of the last stakeholders that I highlighted. Local influencers, celebrities, they need to endorse tokenization initiatives, reaching a broader audience because they've got big followership. So we need to develop friendly guides on how citizens can securely engage with tokenized assets and participate in token economies. So I think it's about moving on various levels, but that is basically some of the low-hanging solutions. I don't mind sharing some of these ideas, and then we can see how can we make them actionable steps. I would love if this forum or this webinar can actually transpire, or the trajectory of this discussion can actually be actionable steps where these various stakeholders can take a step to promote tokenization in Africa, because we make giant leaps. We as Africans, we see it can happen. We see this showcase. We showcase some success stories, tangible projects. I think these are the things which will aim to address current challenges that Africa we face. And mostly it's capital raising. We need to put ourselves out there in the market. And there's no better way than through paving the way for the adoption of tokenization. And it can be in the immediate and even the near future. These are things which can happen very quickly if we work as a joint force. Thank you very much. I think that's basically it.
Really helpful. And I think for many of the attendees, the practical examples, helps us, while talking about conversation. So thank you so much for the different examples, different steps. I'm sure we're all writing and getting different nuggets for this. So I'm going to go to Leithu. I'm going to ask, Robert had talked about different aspects of business, having, business models, fractional ownership and all of that. You have projects that are already demonstrating tokenized ownership and having assets, managing assets within the token economy. So if you can help us, how can businesses and investors benefit from fractional ownership, enabled by tokenization. That's just an example, but of course, you can make it a bit broader, give an example based on the programs that you currently have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I think it's a good question. You see, the background that I come from, having worked in stockbroking, people have a perception that it's for, investing is for people with millions of rands, millions of dollars, and that if you only have 100 rand, 1,000 rand, that you're not an investor. You cannot be involved in that space. So I think tokenization and the ability to fractionalize an asset is something quite revolutionary. It democratizes the space, because a person who's an ordinary worker, not even a middle class, a working class person, if they want to invest 500 rand in a token into real estate, they can do that. I think that's then of course that then brings to the fore a whole lot of new developments. Assets can be made available, which probably may have been overlooked before. So I think it's a very important development. What we are looking to do is to involve particularly young people, because when you talk of technology and digital assets, they are easier to excite. They understand the technology better, and it is something for the future. So, for example, in the example that I gave of social housing developments, we are looking to market those tokens for investing to young people. So it is very exciting. It brings in new possibilities.
Thank you so much, Lefu, for going into that, and of course sharing your experience as well with your program. I'm going to go to Upa, and I wanted you to help us on the blockchain technology aspect. What role does blockchain play in facilitation of the growth of tokenization in Africa? You could share any notable projects that you have currently working on or that you know of. It's important because we have some aspect of Africans labeling blockchain as a deceptive technology or a technology full of fraud and scams. Some have labeled it that way. So it will be interesting to get your take on how blockchain can facilitate this tokenization drive and speeding up, us getting to the token economy that we all desire. You're muted, Upa. Let me see. Is he still in the meeting? Seems he's frozen. Or is it just my end?
Thank you, Miki.
Okay, awesome.
Possible. Can you hear me? Hello?
Can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Wonderful. I haven't done much of blockchain now, but I know a lot of things that happened in blockchain. But one most important thing is to assure the listeners or the viewers that blockchain is not all about scamming. If you had some bad experience about scamming, it was people who introduced you because they wanted to scam you. But blockchain is about trust. It sets the playing field. It gives security. Everything that is written on blockchain cannot be erased. It's a wonderful platform for government. It's a wonderful platform for education system, the medical system. Industry can put trust on blockchain. And it's here to revolutionize everything, to change everything, to decentralize everything that we can ever, or we have ever thought about. The financial industry that has been a serious problem to a lot of us can change with this blockchain thing. Now, when talking about tokenization, it opens doors for everyone, for everyone. I'm a person on the ground. I speak to people on the ground on a daily basis. I hear what they are crying about. I know for a fact that in South Africa alone, we've got around 23 plus million people that are listed on the credit bureau. Those people cannot access a financial aid of any kind. When they want to get some money, the bank will tell them, we cannot give you. If they want to buy a house, they cannot get the house, or they cannot get the financial aid to buy the house. But with this technology, I'm sure their lives will be easy. I'm sure that their problem will be something of the past, because they will be able to invest nowadays. Like I said when I started, that there is a hype of property investment. But when someone thinks that if I have to invest in a property, it means I need to get a bond, it becomes a hurdle on its own. But the blockchain technology brought mercy on us. The blockchain technology says enough is enough. We can move on with our lives without having to go see the middleman, without going to talk to the bank or to get a bond. The little that you have can help you to invest in property. The little that you have can help you to buy whatever that you want to buy, only if we educate our people in tokenization, which is what we need to do. I was saying to my friends last week that we need to start a project of educating the people in our communities about tokenization, because it's a fact that is going to revolutionize this world. It's a fact that is going to change everything that we are doing, how we are doing it. Even when you want to buy a grocery, you would use tokens to buy grocery. Even when you want to take your child to school, you would pay the school fees with tokens. Tokenization is taking over. But the most important thing is for us to learn and learn and learn more about it. And that's all I could say about blockchain technology.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, just listening to you, I was trying to project and imagine many more Africans, having access, to tokenization and services and, promise of better opportunities and ease of doing business or getting services for people all over Africa. I mean, that sounds really the dream of what we all, look for when we're talking about Africa. And then within that line, I'm going to ask Mark the next question. You mentioned earlier about, making the illiquid liquid. And, Upa just talked about different people, more people across Africa having access, to different services via tokenization. So I'd like to ask you about the potential of tokenization. How does this improve liquidity for those of us that don't understand, and accessibility, to traditionally illiquid assets in Africa? If you could just take us on some explanation of that to make us understand better. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Before I dive into that, I must thank Robert. I was taking some notes there, and I've got this huge list of things I'm going to go and read up on after this. So I thank Robert for that. And I'd like to just answer Opa on one thing. There are scams out there. Blockchain doesn't change that. And that's the problem with real world assets and tokenization, is where is the asset? Because sometimes putting something on blockchain and it's recorded and that's fantastic. It's immutable, it's reported, but it's not real. The asset was never there to start with. And I think this is the problem that we've got, Ricky, and I think it plays into your question there, is how do you make the liquid and how do you make it real? Because if you go and buy a security token, so let's take, for example, our livestock fund. We have cattle that sit on a feedlot. You can buy that as a retail client. You can then participate in the real economy by making a rate of return from cattle that are sitting in a feedlot. But how do you know the feedlot is real? Who audited that? Let's use the example of a partnership structure. Who is my general partner? How trustworthy is he? Is there an auditor that was, who set up the partnership agreement? There's all this underpinning law that needs to be there. The technology is one thing. Creating the wonderful little DeFi front end and making it look sexy is the one side of it. Educating the client how to use that technology is the one side of it. But making the real underneath that is what is the major problem we've had over the last couple of years in this industry, especially in South Africa, is guys have come from overseas using blockchain and sold billions of rands worth of nonsense, making the real and the illiquid. So I do think there's a lot of work we need to do with the regulators in terms of how do we set up the underpinning structures? How do you, if you've got a real world asset, is it real? How do you audit it? How do you prove that proof of value? You know, quarterly, do you have to tell me quarterly that you've got so much livestock or that you actually do own a property? You know, because otherwise I might be owning nothing. So, you know, there's this definition of a derivative. A derivative is the ownership of empty air. And I would hate for tokenization to become that as well, because it's fine to report it on blockchain, but let's just make sure the underlying is real. So, and I'll come to your question now, which is about how do you make the illiquid liquid? I don't know, because I can do the origination. I can actually create the token at this moment on DigiShares' platform. I can price it. I can have my auditors value it, and I can have an oracle, let's say, value it. But is anybody going to walk in there and buy it? Is there going to be a secondary market? Am I going to be have people who really want to come and buy property and sell it to someone else? You know, so I could do the primary listing, and my colleague Leto will know this. It's fine to do that initial IPO or ICO and put it on exchange. But thereafter, it needs to have a life of its own. It needs to trade, needs to have liquidity, needs to have fair pricing. We need liquidity providers to come in and make a market. And I think these are the things that will evolve over time with tokenization, but I don't think they're there yet. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to struggle to get some of these initial coin offerings away, because we're selling real assets here. We're not selling hype. If you're doing a utility token, you can sell nonsense. You can sell hype. Here we're selling real assets that produce between 12, 15, 18% per annum. And it's a real thing. And it's never going to go 10 multiple. So yeah, I'm not sure we have the answer how to make the illiquid liquid yet, but we're going to get there.
Thank you so much, Mark. You know, a lot of being real there. So we shouldn't get too carried away with some of the hype. You know, let's talk about the real, you know, things that we have on the ground, the structures that we need to have in place, the real assets themselves, and then also addressing the aspect of scams being real. You know, what we're placing on the blockchain, some people are actually out there as bad actors, making the space a little bit dicey for others. So we need to be careful and do our research. So I'm going to ask Gavin, you mentioned earlier about while conducting some of your projects, there have been challenges. Could you go a little bit into the challenges? Because we know that, you know, just like Mark has been real here, we have to talk about the real aspects there. Challenges, you know, there are scams, there are frauds, there are things that are happening within the system that make it slightly difficult during this time. So if you could go into a little bit of the challenges that you faced, you know, so that we're able to prefer more solutions with getting tokenization adopted more in Africa. Thank you.
Yes, I think the key word there is education. You know, people talk about crypto, and you know what, especially if I look at South Africa, you talk to somebody about tokenization of a real world asset, and they say, no, I don't want to get involved there, it's too risky. And then you say, well, I mean, like if you have the asset and you have proof of that and it's audited and all those things like Mark mentioned, it's not like air that we're trying to sell. They view it as crypto. So to them, it's Bitcoin. Anything you talk about in terms of tokenization, even though it's got nothing to do with Bitcoin, they will say that that's the risk. So it's educating people in terms of what it really is, what tokenization means, and how it can actually affect your life and your investment portfolio, because it's there's some real assets out there, and that can really be, you know, very, very good, you know, investment opportunities. But people, you know, yeah, they still view it as that. And I think that's our biggest issue currently. And I'm not even referring to legislation. I'm not referring to issues that come up where, you know, when it comes to regulations or regulatory authorities, you know, making it difficult for people to tokenize, you know, assets. So I think just the general public, and I think South Africa especially, people are not really educated. You do get a lot of them who are really super educated, but then most of the people, I believe, in the fraternity in my sort of game and arena that I play, they don't actually know what it's all about. There was the hype which we spoke about, you know, Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, and everybody buys it. Now they're sitting with Bitcoin, and they don't know how to actually realize the funds or realize the money. They have their wallets, but they don't know how to do this. And then most of them are sitting with a situation now where, you know, the tax issues that comes, you know, to basically having bought Bitcoin a while back, and now sitting with something that's worth quite a bit of money. They don't know how to get their money out. They don't want to take their money out. So it's sitting there. It's a dead asset, really, in their hands. So that's really the challenges, to look at a project and to say, this is real, we can sell this, and forget about the risk in terms of your, you know, crypto asset per se. It's a real asset, and it's basically, you know, you're buying a share in a company, in a property company, and you get your returns. And that's sort of making people understand how it works, and educating them, you know, in that regard. So that's the difficulty, the most difficult, you know, thing for me to come across to investors.
Thank you so much, Gavin, for that insight. I would like to ask Robert, coming along, when Web3 came along, it was like everybody was mentioning Web3 is here. We don't need to have we don't have any problems with trust anymore. Trust is settled, you know, the system will handle everything. And then we're coming up with these projects that we're seeing are crumbling right before our eyes. Like the FTX saga is there. There are other, you know, projects that came along and poof, just disappeared into thin air. So let's talk about risk and auditing of Web3 processes like tokenization. How do we go about this? You know, it was supposed to solve the trust element. So how do you audit the trusted, you know, platform? How do we go about this? You know, do you have any tips, you know, experiences that you've gone through, you know, within your programs or projects? If you could shed a bit of light on that, that would be awesome. I mean, there are no answers, but, you know, you can push us in the right direction. You're muted.
I hope so, because this is really the challenge, and I like the honesty of Mark. You know, I have to crack myself up, because I've proposed this to a couple of people, and like I said, the limitation is not there in terms of creativity in tokenization. People will come and tell you I have 100, maybe 100 acres of a tea farm, tea plantation, and I want to fractionalize this. And you think of DAOs and DACs and all of these things in terms of your solutions to better do verification solutions and things like that, you know, the voting and all of this sort of, I'm sure you all know what DAOs are, and that is one of the things which I kind of find is something that can be driven from a community aspect, and you grow it even from a big family to a bigger community. So I look at DAOs as one of the solutions in terms of verification and authentication of this, and advancing from the idea of Web 2 to Web 3. For those who don't know or not aware about Web 3, we are talking about the metaverse. So for instance, in Gavin's case, I would probably push for the hospitals to make it into more like a metaverse kind of a thing, where you have people, potential investors who want to be a part of it, and they want to buy some securities or shares, they can at least walk through your hospital and have some sort of experience and even have a say in terms of what they would like you to change, maybe something like a validation sort of thing before they actually buy into the idea of getting involved in the project. So those are some of the solutions we can push in terms of tokenization in the next and then in the next phase. And I think in the immediate phase, because that is what is going to trigger investment and even capital markets to participate in these corporates, everyone. Web3, I think, is highly related to the aspects of tokenization through the metaverse. I think that is something we can look at. Another thing is the principles of tokenization, obviously backed by blockchain technologies. Blockchain technologies, by the way, are incorruptible. You cannot corrupt. You need so much computation power to actually corrupt any blockchain, solutions. So that is good even for governments and even for everyone. That is actually what is. Of course, you'll have resistance from people who are corrupt. They're the ones who won't want even blockchain to be in place because they'll be unable to corrupt this or manipulate systems. So blockchain definitely is a solution which should be embraced, and it's got some spillovers because then with blockchain, then you have the full supply chain is also covered in it, where we are talking about from Internet of Things to analytics to you name it. You can put a lot of machine learning, machine IDs, ID sovereignty. So all of those things combined, all those technologies combined, and even government should invest heavily if they want to push the tokenization agenda. And that is why we're even talking to the African Union to also be a part of this. We need to standardize this for ourselves as Africa. Europe is doing very well in standardizing the tokenization environment. So Africans, we should also be able to embrace these technologies. They're here to stay. Once you've seen CBDCs there already, which are backed by fiat currencies, governments are doing that. China already did that. When did China do it? 2000 during the Olympics. They experimented on their central bank did currency, government currency, and it went very well successfully. Countries like El Salvador did horribly badly when they decided to go Bitcoin as their main currency, and they didn't understand. They were just running about because they knew Bitcoin is a thing by that time. And when it went down, the whole country was in problems. They had to borrow money from, from the World Bank. So again, the steps that we need to take need various stakeholders to be a part of this. And to trigger all those concerns, I think we need to look at how we present tokenization. We need to make it fun. The African continent is young, so looking at the metaverse aspect, and mostly the young won't really invest in it unless they are sponsored by their parents, and that means they're the good change agents to actually develop the tokenization aspect. So again, you need to actually market this to foster it in the universities, include institutions which are into the architectural space, engineering space, digital twin technologies. Digital twin is basically where you have your simulations, so that you can be able to probably run some of this. You won't run it, but you can be able to see what is happening, because then you can have one physical twin and one virtual twin working into a project, and basically you're able to run an operation, for example, or an ongoing asset, because somebody wants to invest in a hotel or wants to invest in a hospital. The liquidity issue comes in when they want to see their return on, they want to see their monies, but they want to be able to know that the management is the viability management of running that organization is in place. So that's where the DAOs come into place, where then the voting is done. You know who is involved in this. People register their qualifications, and all that stacked up together and put in such a way that is not too cumbersome at the same time. It's fun, and I think we can talk our own story. As much as Europe and other countries have done well, we need to identify what we Africans want. I think Africans can make a giant leap if we can have this in applications on the phone, things which can talk to them directly, and the interfaces of this also should be very attractive. And those are the sort of those are some of the concerns I was having. So I was laughing when Mark talked about the cows and how will they know this is, you know. So agriculture is a big thing. I had somebody talking to me about a tea plantation, and this question I was almost flabbergasted because you can't explain in so much technical. I'm not even the best. I'm not even good at presenting. I get so tired explaining certain things because my head is running fast, and you're already there, but the person who you're trying to pitch to is so behind. They don't even know what Web3 is. They don't know what metaverse is, the blockchain. So all this is like jargon to them, and they can't even make a decision within 10 minutes. So we should find a way of doing this in 100 words, whether it's going to be visual combined with some programs and workshops, put this into schools. And I think we need to start this from the educational part of view. And even for DigiShares, they need to realize this, these experiences we are having here in Africa. And if we can make this into our daily lives, if we can tokenize very simple things, you know, start tokenization from simple, you start knowing what a token is, you know, very simple stuff. Maybe recycling, you get a token. If you do this, you get a token. If you switch off your lights, and then you gradually grow into securities and properties, and so you advance the level of tokenization. I think that we will be able to grow, but we need to put it in our daily lives. For example, here in Kenya, we don't touch money. People pay everything from your taxes to your public transport to everything, but it's in your life. You borrow stuff, everything is on your phone. And I think that was a big step, speaking about Kenya, compared to when you get tourists who visit from Europe. They don't believe that an African country is actually not touching money. And that is just an example to show you that Africans, we can make giant leaps. Cross-border payments, which Gavin was talking about, those are some of the things which are solutions for Africa. We don't need to have, so if we can have an African standardized tokenization. I know we've been talking about African currency. Forget about the African currency. Let's move on the digital side. Maybe we'll make a bigger step, a faster trajectory, and talk about a tokenized African currency. That's my my take on this, but it's a tricky situation. I think we need to have some joint thinking, but metaverse is one way to make it fun. Web3, like you mentioned, I think that way we can talk about how we can implement those into school.
Robert,
thank you very much.
The insight, you know, into that question. That was really good. Leithu, are you still with us? I'd like to take it to the security challenge area. You mentioned, you talked about crypto licensing, and you also talked about the FATF recommendations. So travel rule and other recommendations that have come out of the FATF. So let's talk a bit about security challenges, you know, data privacy, having to, you know your customer rules, know your business, AML, anti-money laundering, and all these security concerns and processes that need to be put in place for tokenization projects. Could you just highlight a bit of these security challenges and some of how your organization is mitigating them at the moment? Is Leithu with us? Okay. Camera coming on. Unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm here. Sorry, I missed the question. Can you please repeat?
Okay, let's take the question again. I said you talked about crypto licensing. You also talked about the FATF recommendations. So we're looking at the travel rule. Let's talk a bit about the security challenges that we have, you know, within the space, tokenization projects especially. We have the travel rule, for instance. Organizations that are tokenizing need to consider data privacy. There's KYC, KYB, there's AML processes and procedures. If you could just highlight some of the security challenging situations within the industry and how your organization is mitigating them. You could just highlight some for us, and not just for your organization, but for a small business owner, someone who is trying to create or build, within the space. What does that kind of person need to consider when, building their models within tokenization?
Okay. No, thank you. That's an important question. So it comes down to systems and compliance, really compliance with those regulations like AML and counter terrorism financing that you referred to. My personal experience, I can remember starting as a junior person in stockbroking, having to deal with issues of compliance, when vetting clients and things like that. It's not, especially for a boutique firm like ourselves, it's not something that we enjoy doing as professionals, investment professionals. You don't get into this business to deal with legal documents and ask people for their sources of finance, sources of funds, and all those kind of things. It becomes a bit intrusive, but it is necessary because the public needs to be protected, and so that kind of regulation has to filter down to service providers. One of the things that I think is overlooked when regulators look at entities such as ourselves and people generally, just the public, the perception about this industry. One of the things that's overlooked is that compliance and compliance systems, compliance costs money to put in place. Whether you are employing a compliance officer or you are training staff to be up to date with regulation and the directives of the regulator, compliance costs money, and people don't like to talk about that. I don't know, maybe it's a difficult conversation, but for me, because I am the founder and I run my own business, I can't skip it. It's a reality that we have to contend with. So therefore, to your question, what I'm saying is that if you're gonna have small and medium-sized firms participating and challenging the big firms, challenging the banks and making the space more competitive, which is what we want to see. You need for regulators, for government to address that. I'm not saying compliance should be done away with. We need it; it should be there, but let's remember that compliance costs money, and so let's factor that in just when dealing with such matters. Otherwise, from a customer perspective, from the public's perspective, the first thing to remember is that you actually need to deal with when investing, putting money into anything really. Even if it was a physical asset, a physical real estate, you need to be dealing with regulated entities. So like I said in my presentation, awareness is very important because the public must be protected, because if the public loses confidence in the industry and these firms, in this technology and tokenization, distributed ledger technologies, and all of these things, then you wouldn't have an industry. It won't exist if people are not comfortable. So systems, investing in technology, investing in compliance, and public awareness. That's what I think is important.
Thank you so much, Letu. I know that many individuals within Africa have an issue with compliance systems because they believe that because it's decentralized, you know, you shouldn't have regulation. Somehow that school of thought anyway. But thank you for highlighting the importance of dealing with organizations that are licensed, because, you know, it does help to prevent many of the bad stories that we hear currently within the industry. So finally, I'm going to ask you for our final panel question before we go to the attendees' questions. I wanted you to take a stab at the job market itself. When we're talking of Africans, how is tokenization going to impact the job market? People working, people earning a living. You alluded to part of that earlier, but I just wanted you to, you know, just take a quick deep dive into that. How do you think it will impact people and their work lives and their earning capacity within Africa? What does tokenization, you know, do for people in that regard?
May you please rephrase the question, Buki?
Okay, so about, did you get the question?
Yes, I got the question, but I
Okay,
think, please rephrase it for me.
For people within the industry, your organization deals with people, employment, renewable energies within the, you know, space. So I'm just looking at general Africans. Let's imagine the general African man in the village. You know, how does tokenization impact his work and his job that he has? You know, he's going out every day, he's trying to make a living for his family. How do you think tokenization will play out, you know, for someone like that who is just a regular person trying to make a living? And I'm just talking generally. You could take the question from any angle that you feel, especially considering your industry.
Thank you. Thinking about a man on the street. Oh, okay, I meet a lot of what do they call them? Housewives. Yes, I meet a lot of housewives of mine on my street going to work, and I'm thinking if they were to understand or they were to know about tokenization and the little that they are earning from where they are working, because most of them, they don't earn a lot, and a lot of money that they get, it ends up in the transport system. So how much would they have to at least invest so that at the end of the day, while going to work to get the little that they are getting, at least that investment could still enhance their life? So my thinking is that it will really help, it will really change their lives, because like it was said, that tokenization has leveled the playing field. It's not the man with millions who gets to benefit out of this. It's every single one who understands the potential of this tokenization industry. If I were to invest, if I was to listen to Gavin saying to me, we are going to build a hospital in Bloemfontein, a private hospital down Botshabelo Road, the hospital that will benefit people from Tawan to people from Botshabelo down to Jagersfontein. But we need the community to come together to invest in tokenization or to buy a token so that they could be party to the hospital. I believe even that woman who goes to work earning 1,900 Rand per month will be able to invest. And in the long run, that woman will benefit. That woman's children will get to reap the benefit. When that woman's children are sick, they will take the children to that hospital. That is putting money where your mouth is. So tokenization can really do a lot for our people. I don't know what's happening.
Much for that. Yes, I completely understand it. If you're what you're trying to picture is once you become an owner, a part owner of something, you become a stakeholder. And so whatever happens to the asset, you become interested in, sort of. So it's not just your ability to even earn a fraction of the asset, you become involved in the process because you're a stakeholder. I think that would impact Africans greatly, because many times we're talking of governments, people think government is another body, government is not part of them. But when you bring in projects like this and make people part owners of it, they hold a certain stake. And I think they'll be more interested in making it work. So thank you so much for that. I think we're just going to go into the questions. We have just 10 minutes, about 10 minutes left. So I'm just going to go to the chat box to take any questions you have. So earlier, someone asked, thanks, Letu, do you have an ODA you're running the process with already? That's talking about your program that you shared earlier. And if so, at what point did you start collaborating with them, given the lengthy process of the SHRA? So if you could take that quickly before I take the next question.
Right. Thank you. That's a good question. Obviously, somebody who's familiar with the processes at the Social Housing Authority. The quick answer is yes, we do have a number of ODAs that we are working with. But going forward, we will be engaging with other ODAs. As to when we start engaging with them, we start at the late stages of their process. So once they are, they have received the first 2 levels of accreditation, A and B, when they are at the financial closure of their accreditation process, only then we come in when they need the equity funding. That is when we come in.
All right, thank you so much. And I think the final question we have in the chat box is, the government gets its power from taxation with tokenization. That power is not there. How can they join the movement of tokenization without benefits? I think any of the panelists who wants to take that can jump in to answer.
Sorry, repeat. How can government do what?
How can well, it's first says the government gets its power from taxation. And so what the person is trying to say with tokenization, that power isn't there anymore. So how can they join the movement?
Buki, sorry, now I tried to raise my hand.
Without the benefits. Okay, Gavin.
Sorry, no, I'm just going to take a stab at this, but I think, what, government will still be government, and there will always be people paying the taxes, and whichever way you look at this, I don't think we'll take over the world with tokenization. So again, it's the government, the way they're going to perceive this, and really the way they're going to handle it from their side. So I don't know if I understand the question properly, because I didn't see the question on the chat box. But yes, you know what, there will always be a way for government, and again, they will be making their money off the tokenization process as well.
Thank you so much, Gavin. I don't see any other questions.
I think I just wanted to add on that for government. I think government will still make money. The fact that government is also going about with their CBDCs, like I was saying, private always starts something, and when government is following behind, that is a very good indication that there is money for them to be made. They're not going to be losing money. And the fact that the rise of crypto assets, so the more crypto assets are there, you'll still have to pay certain licenses to be able to. For more assets, there are certain compliances and things which you still have to continue paying directly to the government in terms of compliance and so forth. So those still go back to government. Government projects, if we have to invest in government projects, because those are the bigger procurers and they're the ones who hold projects. If people have to participate in those projects, government still benefits, and they still there's spillovers in that. the reduction of transaction costs, because that's what tokenization does. Of course, puts money back into people's pockets, and you build a broader base for people to spend. So you're actually building, because you're making life much easier and saving people are saving in their households. So they'll spend their money. So you need people to save money, to make money, to spend money. So they will still be spending money. Cross-border payments. Gavin was talking about cross-border payments. That will tap to new customers, because there'll be a change of fiat to tokenization and back to fiat. People, the liquidity aspect of exchanging the various modes of payments, that will definitely benefit government as a whole. And of course, the money transfers between digital currencies and trading platforms. They still have certain ways where they're going to benefit. So I think government has still got a big role to play. That's why I say government should invest in this heavily. The fact they're coming from behind, it means they've done their thorough research, and they just need to put an enabling space for this to fall through. So definitely government is not going to be losing at all. Maybe those are some of the ways we can show how government benefits, because I'm sure even with a proposal such as private or whatever, I think as a stakeholder, government should always be a stakeholder to show that they are benefiting. I think that way to make the adoption much faster.
Yeah, and I think that there's some other countries that are leading in that respect. Dubai is making a lot more money from Web3. Singapore, China, some of the other countries. So I think Africa can take a little, lieu in that respect. Government to make money.
Yeah, even South America is doing very well. Brazil, the countries which have adopted very well, and they can see the results. I think we just need to create our own way in Africa how to showcase this. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the conversation today. It's been wonderful speaking about tokenization in Africa. DigiShares, thank you so much for bringing this to us. I think we've learned so much today, even within the panelists, attendees. I'm sure you've learned a lot. I think I'll just go around the table and just ask that you give us your final words in 5 seconds, because we've run out of time. Just 5 seconds. So I'll start with Mark.
Okay, 5 seconds. Lenient and regulatory light shouldn't equal lack of consumer protection, loss of money, etc. We still need to protect the consumer at the end of the day. So I like Robert's ideas about making the ecosystem protect the participants. And I'm going to chat with you offline, Robert. We're going to discuss things. So thank you very much. It's been very useful.
Awesome. So let's go to Gavin.
I think in 5 seconds, your tokenization will spawn a new breed of entrepreneurs, and the opportunity is there. And I think it's just needs to be grabbed by everybody. So thank you very much for allowing me to also participate. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. Robert.
Thank you, Buki. I think we mentioned quite a few things, but then I think the most important thing is the spin-offs from tokenization. It's phenomenal. We just need to be more creative. I think we're not limited with creativity. That's the beauty about tokenization. There's no limitation. It's a fractional economies. There's a lot of inclusivity. So it's just growing bigger. Thank you.
Thank you, Letu.
Thank you very much. I think my final word would be to say this is an enabling technology, and people need to embrace it, and governments need to get involved and promote it. In particular, real estate for residential purposes, agriculture for food security, and energy for energy purposes, for industry. Those are the 3 main sectors which I think should be looking to benefit from this technology. It can do great things for Africa. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Upa.
Thank you again. As much as there must be protection of our consumers, we still need to educate a lot of our people into this tokenization, because it's really going to change how we see things, how we do things. It's going to help the small businesses. Hey, I'm overwhelmed. I'm happy that I was given an opportunity to be part of this panelist, and I believe I've learned, and I'm still gonna learn from my colleagues. And maybe if we could start a collaboration, all of us, to start exchanging ideas and seeing if we can put something together, something tangible that we can push forward. Thanks a lot, DigiShares.
Thank you so much, Upa. So we need to follow up this with actionable steps, things that we can take and move into the future. So thank you so much again, each and every one of you. I think my final words would just be tokenization in Africa can take Africa to unfathomable levels. And it's awesome. Thank you so much, DigiShares, for having us today. Thank you so much, Mark. Robert, thank you so much, Gavin, Lethu, and Upa. It has been an awesome time sharing about tokenization in Africa. And like said, by Upa, we need to take this to the next level with certain actionable steps. I think I'll just hand it over to Ashley now. Thank you so much for having us today. And to the attendees, we're sure you had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for tuning in, giving us the opportunity to share. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.